My name is Alex Dworjan. I'm an Ansible specialist, and I'm going to be walking through how I can create a repository inside Private Automation Hub that includes the exact collection and versions that I've built into my execution environment. So what am I doing and why is it actually helpful? So what I'm doing is at the end of an execution environment build or with an existing execution environment, I'm taking all of the available collections and versions and adding a repository into Private Automation Hub so the end user can see exactly what collections and versions are available to them. So this means that there's no confusion if they're doing development and want a UI-based way to look through the documentation. They get the exact collection and the exact version that's available to them, so there won't be any differences between the modules that are available to them or any sort of differences between collection versions because it's exactly what's available inside that execution environment. Based on how I've created this, I can either use an existing execution environment that you already have, or what I would recommend is building it into your execution environment build process so this becomes an automated way to keep this up and provide it to the end user. The way I have it set up is it will basically destroy the existing repository and rebuild it, but it will maintain that exact same URL. So I can send the development teams a consistent URL that they would always have access to that will always be kept up to date with their execution environments and the collections associated with them. From a build process, all I needed were two collections for this to work, the infra.ah configuration and containers.podman. So the configuration I used to actually make the repository, and then I use containers.podman to do the Ansible Galaxy collection list in my execution environment. Then I just use the URI module to hit an endpoint in Private Automation Hub to provide all of the different collections and versions to it. So let's walk through what this can look like both from a playbook standpoint, and then let's see what the output is. If you've watched any of my other videos, you've probably seen that I already have roles to create execution environments. But really what I did in this case was modified that role to add in a simple task list at the bottom to create that repository in Private Automation Hub. So let's go into that create repo.yaml. And as you can see, that first task is actually just getting that full list of collections built into my execution environment. Since I'm leveraging the Podman collection and leveraging an execution environment, all I'm running in there is the Ansible Galaxy collection list command. This will print out the full list of collections and versions that's built into this execution environment. Since this isn't tied to the builder process, I could use this on existing execution environments or, as I've done, use it at the end of my automation build process. Then for Private Automation Hub itself, I want to delete the existing repository or just verify that it's not there. So I only have the exact collection versions that are present in my current execution environment. Then I need to create the repository. This is ensuring there's also a distribution for that repository, which is necessary if you want to be able to see the UI for that particular repository. So this is important to keep in mind as you're building that repository for the end users. Then the last step is just looping through all the different collections to ensure that I'm adding them into Private Automation Hub and that specific repository. So I'm looping through that repository, the namespace, the collection name, and then version to add them into that repository. So this is basically just copying the collections as they exist into that newly created repository. I am not creating a separate remote. I'm not resyncing collections. All I'm doing is taking collections that are already in Private Automation Hub and adding them into this repository. So it's just a change of metadata, not re-downloading collections that are already present in Private Automation Hub. So if I go into controller to see a job that I recently ran, I can see this is that create repo in Private Automation Hub step. It does that get list of collections built in, deletes the repository, creates a new one, and then I can see all the different collections that are getting added in with the exact version. So that the loop, conveniently enough, shows me all the collections and versions that get added in. And then if I go to Private Automation Hub, I can see that I do have this Shadowman repository. That's what I named mine. It is not tied to a remote, but it does have a distribution set up. So if I go into collections, I can actually go to that specific repository and see only the 32 collections that are installed in my execution environment and only the exact versions that are installed. So if I go into the F5 modules, I will see that I only have one collection available to me. So from the end user's perspective, there is no confusion as to what collections are available and what versions are available to me. And since this is built into my build process, the next time I build a new execution environment, I will delete this repository and rebuild it with the exact versions of the collections that are available to my end users. So this can really streamline some of your processes if you want to provide documentation to your end users. So that's what I wanted to show as far as the availability to create a repository for each execution environment. Since this can be an automated process, I did want to share that repository. So the create repo.yaml will be linked in the description down below. Everything in there is variabilized, so you can modify it to your needs. So if you've got a different repository name that you want to use, obviously a different private automation hub and credentials to access it, you have full capability to do that without having to rewrite the entire playbook. Thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more how I can create an execution environment repository to provide a better user experience for the end developer. Thank you. Click my picture on the right to subscribe, or click the image on the left to watch another video.